Let's proceed with JPanels. A JPanel is a GUI component that functions as a container to hold other components. In brief, a JPanel will act as a section in our JFrame. So these different sections will hold different components in order to organize them in our JFrame. So let's see how this works. Let me remove this code from the frame we worked with previously so that we can see how to construct our JPanels. I'll get these labels and cut them out. Let me cut this out and paste it here. So I'll run my frame to see if it's working. This is the JFrame, an empty frame we currently have. So we'll need to add a JPanel in this frame. To create a JPanel, you instantiate the panel class or the JPanel class, just like we did for the JFrame in line 15 here. You say JPanel, we give our panel a name. Let me say panel 1 equals to new JPanel. We need to import the JPanel from java.swing JPanel. We need to set the bounds for this panel. We use the .set bound. Use this method. I'll set this to x margin 0, y margin 0, and a width of 200 and a height of 200. Let me set also the background color for this panel. So it's color.red. So to display this panel in the frame, I'll need to add this panel to my JFrame. I'll add this like we added the JLabel. I'll use the .add method which adds a component to the JFrame. So I'll paste in my panel 1. Let me run this to see what we have currently. So this is our panel, which we have here in red. But we can add multiple panels. As I told you earlier, these are sections which will be used to organize our components in our JFrame. So this is the JFrame, and this red one is our JPanel. But we can add multiple sections or multiple JPanels to our frame. Let me add another panel. I'll just copy this to make things simple and paste it here. I'll change it to JPanel 2. And I'll give it a different color. Let me say .yellow. And I'll also add it to the frame. So I'll change its bounds from 0. I'll give it a margin of 200 so that they don't overlap. So let me run and see what the output is. So as you see, this is our first panel and this is another panel. So these are different sections whereby you can add different components in the red panel and different components in the yellow panel. So how does this help you to organize components? For example, you can have like many components, like 10, 20, any number of components you want in this panel. But for these components to be displayed, you just have to call this panel or to add this panel to the JFrame instead of adding one component by component. For example, you can have like two labels in the red panel, but if you don't call this panel, these components will not be displayed. So you will have to call this panel for all these components to be displayed. So let me demonstrate that. So let me add a JLabel to our red panel. I'll first say JLabel. Let me name this J1 equals to new JLabel. This is label 1. I'll set its bounds. Let me make it 0 margin, 0 top margin. I'll make this 100 by 50. So for this, so I'll need to add this JLabel to the J panel. So let me add it to the first panel or the red panel, which is panel 1. I'll say JPanel 1 dot add component. Then I'll pass in the J1, which is our JLabel 1. So let me run this. Now we will have our first label here. But we can add other labels in this component. So let me first correct this spelling. And also I'll give it a background color. Let me give this JLabel a background color so that it can be more visible. I'll make this white. And remember, if you are dealing with a JLabel, to make the set background effective, you need to set the opacity for the background color to take effect. I'll add another JLabel so that we have multiple labels in our J panel. So I'll make this J2 and change this to 2 and this to 2, and also the set bounds. And for this, I'll say top 100, so that, let me say 110, so that they don't overlap. Hold on, let me give it a 100. Oh, let me give it a 75 from the top margin. And I also need to add it to the J panel. I'll add it to J panel 1. I'll make this a 2. So let me format my workspace to make it neat and run. So I'll first make this one JLabel 2, and then run our program. So as you see, these are two different J labels. This is label 1, this is label 2. So as you see these labels, we can add more labels in this component. More labels, we can add more different components in this J frame. For example, all these labels are visible because we added our panel to the frame. But once we remove this panel from the frame, it will remove all these J labels, or it will not display all its components. Let me show you what I mean. For example, if you see our code on line 40 here, we are adding the JPanel 1 to our frame. If I comment this line out, that means we cannot be able to see all the components of JPanel 1. Let me run it to show you what I mean. So as you see, now we only have JPanel 2, which is yellow, and JPanel 1 is not displayed, and all its components are not displayed. So this will help you, because in future you will need to display certain components based on certain conditions. For example, you can say if the logged in user is an admin, display everything. But if it's not an admin, don't display the section or the panel where which gives rights to other people to add users to your program. That is one of the examples whereby you can restrict some components from being displayed. And if you have your components arranged in different sections, you can restrict one section from being visible. So that's why it's good to always organize our components in different sections or in different panels. So those are two panels. Let me uncomment this line so that we can see our panel. And we can add also other frames or other panels to our J frame. For example, this is J panel 1. I can add the third panel. Let me say J panel 3. I'll come here and I say J panel 3. I'll set its bounds. Let me give it a top margin of 200, and I can make it 200. I can make this 400 so that it takes up all the bottom space. Let me make this one also JPanel 3, and I'll add this to our frame. So I'll make this 3 to make it visible, and I'll change its color. Let me give it green. So I'll run to see what we have. So this is our panel which we have just added, the green panel or the JPanel 3. And this is our first panel, JPanel 1, and this is JPanel 2. So we can add more components, or we can add more customization to our code so that we refine it more based on our desires. So basically, those are the basics of the JPanel.